Commissioner Gordon, Bane has escaped.
There is a man standing ahead of you, silent, severe, carved from the consequences you keep postponing. He does not beg for attention. He does not explain himself to rooms that lack the eyes to understand him. He has the body you promised to build, the discipline you kept delaying, the calm you pretended would arrive with time, and the authority that only comes from years of private war. He is not imaginary. He is not fantasy. He is the version of you that would exist if your actions stopped betraying your intentions. That is what makes him so painful to look at. He is close enough to accuse you. Every time you waste a day, he recedes. Every time you choose comfort over command, he grows colder toward you. You feel his absence in quiet moments, not as sadness, as insult, as proof that something greater was available, and you kept choosing smaller rooms because they asked less of you. Do not pretend you are confused about what is missing. Confusion is often the costume cowardice wears when it wants to appear intelligent. You know the habits that weaken you. You know the environments that poison your focus. You know the people who drain your ambition and call it friendship. You know the hours you sacrifice to nothing. You know the body you could have built by now if your standards were not negotiable. You know the money you could have saved, the skills you could have sharpened, the work you could have completed, the mind you could have trained into something precise and dangerous. The tragedy is not ignorance. The tragedy is repeated awareness without correction. A man can be forgiven for not knowing the road. He cannot be respected for staring at the road for years and refusing to walk. Your potential is not hidden from you. It has been standing there with its arms folded, watching you make the same excuses in different clothing. There are two lives fighting inside your chest. One is convenient, familiar, easily defended, and slowly humiliating. It asks for nothing except continued surrender. It offers small pleasures, temporary relief, and enough distraction to keep you from noticing the decay too sharply. The other life is heavier. It demands discomfort before breakfast. It demands honesty without decoration. It demands that you become unrecognizable to people who only knew the version of you that folded easily. Most men choose the first life because it does not challenge their identity. Then they call it peace. They call it being realistic. They call it balance. No, it is often fear with better manners. The second life will cost you comfort, approval, laziness, and illusions. It may cost you the softness that made others comfortable around you. Good. A man cannot become formidable while remaining perfectly digestible to everyone who benefited from his weakness. Your current self is not evil. He is simply underbuilt, undertrained, undercommanded. He has been allowed to speak too often when discipline should have silenced him. He complains when the work becomes dull. He panics when progress slows. He negotiates with alarms, workouts, deadlines, difficult conversations, and responsibilities as if life were a servant waiting for his mood to improve. This version of you has survived by lowering the standard whenever pressure rises. That strategy has kept him comfortable, not powerful. Comfort is a poor architect. It builds soft rooms, low ceilings, and exits everywhere. The man you could become requires a harsher builder. He requires structure. He requires repetition. He requires punishment for broken promises, not through self-hatred, but through immediate correction. Miss the standard, return to it at once. Fall short, pay with effort. Drift, regain command before drift becomes identity. Weakness becomes permanent only when it is tolerated too politely. You keep measuring your life by how difficult things feel in the moment, which is why you keep choosing poorly. The moment lies. The moment says sleep longer. The moment says skip the work. The moment says avoid the conversation. The moment says you deserve relief before you have earned transformation. A serious man does not obey the moment. He interrogates it. He understands that the present self is often a frightened creature seeking warmth, while the future self is the one forced to live inside the consequences. Every act of discipline is a vote cast for a man who does not yet exist fully. Every act of surrender is a debt placed on his shoulders. You think you are merely wasting an evening. You are stealing from a future version of yourself who may have needed that skill, that body, that courage, that saved money, that completed work, that trained mind. Theft becomes uglier when the victim is your own future. Look at your reflection without the usual mercy, not with hatred. Hatred is emotional and sloppy. Look with precision. What evidence exists that you are becoming the man you claim you want to be? Not thoughts, not intentions, not saved videos, not plans written in notes and abandoned by Monday. Evidence. Hours trained, pages studied, work shipped, money kept, temptations refused, difficult truths spoken, standards defended when nobody applauded. A man is not defined by what he imagines under comfortable lighting. He is defined by what he repeats under pressure. If your evidence is thin, accept the verdict. Then change the evidence. That is the clean path. Weak men hear truth and collapse into shame, because shame allows them to feel dramatic without acting. Strong men hear truth and become operational. They do not need a ceremony. They need a target, a system, and a refusal to keep lying. There is a certain disgust that becomes useful if you do not drown in it. Not the theatrical disgust of a man insulting himself in the mirror, hoping pain will substitute for discipline. A colder disgust. The kind that arrives when you finally see how expensive your laziness has become. You realize the missed days were not isolated. They formed a pattern. The pattern formed a personality. The personality formed a life. Suddenly the cost becomes visible. You are not behind because fate hunted you uniquely. You are behind because your standards had too many exits. This realization can either break you or clean you. Let it clean you. Let it burn through the excuses without burning through your will. The goal is not to sit in guilt like a beggar warming his hands over ashes. The goal is to stand up with a face emptied of negotiation and begin removing every habit that made you smaller. Identity is not a crown placed on your head by destiny. It is residue. It is the dust left behind after repeated action. Men love saying, "I am not disciplined," as if they discovered some ancient truth carved into stone. No, they are simply describing the evidence they have collected through repeated surrender. A man skips the work enough times, then calls himself lazy. He avoids pressure enough times, then calls himself anxious. He breaks his own word enough times, then calls himself inconsistent. He mistakes the label for the cause, when the label is merely the footprint. Your identity is not commanding your behavior from a throne. Your behavior is building the throne, one act at a time. Every morning you choose, every temptation you obey, every difficult task you face or avoid, every private standard you keep or abandon, all of it hardens into self-image. You are not discovering who you are. You are manufacturing him under the pressure of repetition. There is no hidden superior man waiting patiently behind the curtain for perfect conditions. That fantasy has ruined more lives than failure ever could. Men imagine their future self as some noble creature who will appear once money improves, once stress decreases, Once motivation returns, once the environment becomes clean, once the timing feels right. Ridiculous. The future self is not summoned by comfort. He is assembled through proof, brick by brick, rep by rep, decision by decision. You do not become disciplined after believing you are disciplined. You become disciplined after acting with discipline long enough for the mind to accept the evidence. The brain is a cold accountant. It watches what you do repeatedly, then updates the file. If you keep choosing distraction, it records you as distracted. If you keep choosing work, it records you as reliable. The mind does not care about your speeches. It cares about receipts. Show it enough receipts and it will change the name on the account. Consider the construction site inside you. Steel beams half raised. Foundations poured in certain places, abandoned in others. Tools left in the rain. Blueprints stained with old enthusiasm. Every time you begin again, workers arrive. Focus returns. Energy returns. Hope returns. Then you vanish from the site for weeks, feeding distractions, nursing moods, pretending tomorrow will restart the machinery. Eventually, even the workers learn your pattern. They stop trusting the project. They show up slower. They expect abandonment. This is what happens inside a man who repeatedly breaks his own momentum. His nervous system stops believing the mission. His confidence weakens because confidence requires continuity. A building cannot rise if the architect visits only when inspired. The man you could become cannot be built by occasional intensity. He requires daily presence, even small presence, especially small presence. A brick placed every day becomes a wall. A dramatic pile of bricks once a month becomes clutter. Darrell Bem's work pointed toward a brutal truth. People infer who they are by watching what they do. That should disturb you. It means every private act is a message to your own identity. You skip training and your mind whispers, "This is the kind of man we are." You keep training despite fatigue and the same mind whispers differently. You sit down to work when nobody would know if you escaped, and identity shifts by a fraction. Small, yes. Harmless, no. Fractions compound. A man does not become formidable through one grand declaration. He becomes formidable because his repeated behavior leaves no room for the old story to survive. Eventually, the evidence becomes overwhelming. You no longer need to convince yourself you are serious. The record proves it. Until that record exists, your confidence remains theater. Beautiful words, empty stage, no army behind them. Build the army first. Let belief arrive afterward like a conquered city. Most men are addicted to personality explanations because they protect the ego. I am just not that kind of person. Such a soft little sentence. It sounds humble, though it is often cowardice with clean shoes. You are not that kind of person because you have not performed that kind of behavior consistently. The identity feels foreign because the actions are foreign. The gym feels strange to the man who never trains. Deep work feels unbearable to the man who has fed his attention to noise for years. Courage feels unnatural to the man who avoids every difficult conversation. Nothing mystical is happening. The system is simply untrained. Repetition makes foreign behavior familiar. Familiar behavior becomes natural. Natural behavior becomes identity. This is how men are remade, not through emotional ceremonies, not through motivational intoxication, through repeated exposure to the standard until the old self has no oxygen left. There is a dangerous comfort in waiting to feel like the man before behaving like him. It allows delay to masquerade as self-awareness. When I become confident, I will act. No, act, then confidence may arrive. When I become disciplined, I will follow structure. No. Follow structure until discipline becomes believable. When I become focused, I will remove distractions. No. Remove distractions while focus is still wounded and trembling. Identity follows evidence. You keep trying to reverse the order because the correct order is humiliating. It requires acting before you feel worthy of the action. It requires doing the work while still carrying the identity of the man who avoided it yesterday. Good. That tension is the battlefield. The old self will accuse you of pretending. Let him. Every new identity begins as an impersonation repeated long enough to become truth. The first disciplined act may feel false. The 100th begins to feel familiar. The 1,000th becomes law.
You have already met him. Do not insult yourself by pretending otherwise. He has appeared in brief moments when your discipline sharpened, when your mind cleared, when your body obeyed, when your voice carried weight, when your standards rose high enough to frighten the weaker parts of you. You have seen him in flashes, a cleaner version, a colder version, a man with command in his eyes instead of negotiation. He stands in your imagination fully built, not as fantasy, but as accusation. That is why the image hurts. It is not distant enough to dismiss. It is not vague enough to ignore. You know his posture. You know his routine. You know how he speaks, how he moves, how little he explains, how quickly he cuts through nonsense. The problem has never been lack of vision. The problem is that you keep visiting him like a tourist visiting a monument, admiring what could be built, then returning to the ruins you call normal life. There is a particular cowardice hidden inside repeated inspiration. A man watches his future self rise in his mind, feels the heat of possibility for a few minutes, then mistakes that emotional spark for progress. He walks away satisfied because he saw the mountain clearly, even though his feet never touched the climb. Vision without obedience becomes entertainment. Many men spend years introducing themselves to their better self through imagination, journals, plans, videos, speeches, and late-night promises. Then morning arrives and the same old creature returns. Same bed, same phone, same delay, same excuses dressed in fresh language. This is how potential becomes humiliating. Not because it is absent, but because it keeps presenting itself, and you keep refusing the handshake. You know what the better man requires. He requires work before comfort. He requires standards before mood. He requires action before certainty. You keep meeting him at the door, then leaving him standing there, while you go back to feeding the version that made you miserable. Do not call this confusion. Confusion has become the favorite hiding place of men who already know the answer. You know the first 5 moves. Wake earlier, train the body, control the mouth, reduce the poison entering your attention. Finish the work you keep delaying. Speak truth where you keep performing politeness. Stop giving your best hours to distractions that will not even remember your name. These are not mysteries. They are orders you keep disobeying. The man you could be is not asking for a perfect life plan. He is asking for proof that you are serious enough to stop betraying the obvious. Weak men demand clarity as a condition for movement. Strong men create clarity through movement. The road becomes visible after the first disciplined step, not before it. You keep standing at the entrance, waiting for the entire empire to reveal itself before laying the first stone. That is not strategy. That is fear wearing a scholar's robe. Your best moments are not accidents. They are evidence. When you felt focused for one day, that was evidence. When you trained despite resistance, evidence. When you refused a temptation that usually owns you, evidence. When you completed work without applause, evidence. The better man is not supernatural. He is simply the version of you that receives enough evidence to become permanent. You keep treating these moments like rare weather, as if discipline briefly visited from another climate. Wrong. Those moments reveal what is available when you stop letting weakness command the room. The tragedy is that you do not protect them. You let the old pattern return and swallow the evidence before it can become identity. A serious man guards momentum like a fortress. He understands how easily the old self sneaks back through unguarded doors. One skipped day, one unnecessary indulgence, one casual surrender. Suddenly the better man fades again. Not because he vanished, but because you stopped feeding him proof. There is an insult in knowing your own potential too clearly. Ignorant men can sometimes sleep peacefully. You cannot. You have seen enough of yourself to know the current version is incomplete. That knowledge will not leave you alone. It follows you into ordinary rooms. It sits beside you while you waste time. It watches quietly when you choose comfort over command. You feel it as restlessness, irritation, shame, hunger, sometimes even anger without a clear target. The target is clear. You are angry at the gap. The distance between the man you can imagine and the man your habits keep producing. That gap becomes unbearable when a man stops lying. Many people dull themselves so they do not feel the gap anymore. They call it maturity. They call it acceptance. They call it peace. No, they have merely anesthetized the wound. You are not supposed to make peace with a life that constantly proves you are underbuilt. A dangerous man does not need to feel inspired by his future self every morning. He has converted inspiration into structure. That is the difference. The weak man visits the image when he needs emotional fuel. The strong man builds systems so the image becomes inevitable. He removes choices before weakness can negotiate. He prepares the environment before laziness enters court. He sets the standard, then obeys it without requiring a dramatic feeling. You keep depending on emotion to carry responsibilities that require architecture. Emotion is a poor soldier. It deserts under pressure. Structure remains. If you want to stop walking away from the man you could be, stop making the relationship dependent on mood. Build a routine that drags you toward him even on ugly days. Build consequences for drifting. Build rituals that make discipline automatic. Build distance from people and habits that keep reintroducing you to the lesser self. A future identity is not reached through longing. It is reached through machinery.